Hi everyone, it's Paula here for this week's Pocket Parenting episodes. I am bringing these episodes for you every week so that you can learn to become an empowering, influential, calm, connected, loving, patient, and present parent to your child. It's not an easy task, and it is such a beautiful journey of growth and learning and discovery. My invitation here is to let go of your old parenting paradigm, let go of any old ideas of how parents should be, what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing, because I'm here to give you actually the latest and the greatest. I love child development. I love kids. I'm all about how do we understand them more? How do we make a better, more beautiful experience for parents, decrease power struggles, tantrums, and really really raise strong, resilient, loving, kind, and peaceful children. And when we do that, I do believe that the world will be a better place. So you do have an important job. You are not in it alone because I'm right here with you. So I have some revolutionary news for you today that I'm not sure if you have ever heard this before, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to be courageous and I'm going to say it. Stop regulating your child. Stop regulating your child. What? That is a crazy statement. So it seems, right? Because everybody's always talking about and trying to figure out, like, how do I soothe my child? How do I regulate my child? Paula, what do I do when my child is crying, having tantrums, doing all these things? And sometimes, and more often than you think, the answer actually is stop regulating them. Let them have the tantrum. Let them go through and experience the big emotions and accept the crying. So let me dive a little deeper and explain all this to you because it might like feel a little like completely opposite of what you have learned. Now, here's the thing though, there are no ABC models. There's not like a cookie cutter model of do this and then you do that and then you do that, because that's not how kids work. That's not how relationships and human beings work. So what is required instead is flexibility. What is required instead is you being attuned, super attuned, which means this connection. It means mindfulness. It means empathy, like being attuned to your child and their inner experience, their emotions, and what's going on. So it really means like being fully present, because it's only from this place of attunement you will be able to figure out not only the right response, but also the right timing for the correct and effective response. So that is why there is no cookie cutter model for what you should do with your kids. It's a dance. It's a dance, really. So, but enjoy the dance. Don't be afraid of the dance. Enjoy the dance with your child. So sometimes, like I said, sometimes the correct response is not making any efforts to regulate your child, but to really let them cry it out. I'm so excited about this topic because I just had a beautiful all-day training with Dr. Alita Salter, who is a developer of the Aware Parenting. So her last name is spelled Solter. She is the author of some amazing books. I have mentioned them several times. If you haven't gotten them yet, please go ahead and do so. So one of her books is called Tears and Tantrums: What to Do when Babies and Children Cry. Another good one is Cooperative and Connected: Helping Children Flourish Without Punishments or Rewards. And in my training with Dr. Salter, I was just in awe because she's speaking my language, anything and everything that I have anecdotally and learned and in my experience with children is exactly what also Dr. Salter is teaching. And I am here transmitting her theories and her information and her insights over to you as well. And these are actually backed by research and what we know about child development. So this is really nothing new. It's just so unknown. It's just so unknown that I think that it's important to have a little bit more prevalence of this information out there. So that is why I am committed to making sure that parents really know that it is actually a healing mechanism. So crying, tears, tantrums, getting frustrated and all that, those are attempts to heal. Child is attempting to heal themselves from big emotions. Maybe they are frightened, maybe a lot of little stressors and things have happened throughout the day, and now they get to release that. It's actually just a natural way of healing. So can you imagine what happens when we interrupt that too soon? So what ends up happening in those cases, if you inappropriately interrupted the child's natural ways of healing, they start suppressing their emotions, and the stress accumulates. Instead of the stress leaving the body, now it begins to accumulate, and child is just holding on to these big feelings inside them. So children who are not allowed to cry, when the parent might be distracting the crying, they might be soothing. Like when I talk about allowing the crying, this doesn't mean that you leave the child to cry by themselves. You are right there and you are present, but you are not coming from a place that the child should stop the crying. The child should absolutely finish and complete the crying. And afterwards, a child who has had a really good cry, they are actually very responsive. They become very calm. They become very curious. They become playful. They are like back into the homeostasis. So it is really important to um, accept the crying. When crying is stopped, children are they're still going to feel hurt and frightened or sad and angry or stressed out. The stopping the crying doesn't resolve it. Children also will be more prone to illnesses and sleeping problems. They could get really hyperactive, more defiant, aggressive, uncooperative, and demanding. Whining is another sign of that maybe perhaps the child hasn't been allowed to fully cry. Their cries have not been accepted. Their tantrums have not been accepted. And kids who are in this sort of state, they have trouble learning anything new. And then on the other hand, when the crying is accepted, children is actually healed from emotional pain. I'm a trauma therapist, so one thing we know about trauma is that part of healing through trauma is going through the wound and experiencing and feeling the big feelings again. And if child is not allowed to feel those feelings, they also can't heal. So after crying, the child is happier and more relaxed, they sleep better, and are less prone to illnesses. When children are allowed to cry, they are more calm, gentle, compassionate, cooperative, resourceful, and better thinkers and learners. This is the outcome of letting children cry versus starting to regulate them too soon, which interrupts the crying. So the crying allows the child to just be with their feelings, which leads to healing. Now, I know that all this sounds really confusing, right? And I know that you're getting a lot of different kinds of information. There are some parenting experts that tell you totally something different, parenting experts who tell you to do consequences, punishments, rewards, timeouts, all that stuff is out there. and you get to choose for yourself and what you feel is resonates the most with your own heart, and that is the place that you get to parent from. So let me give you just a couple guidelines. Again, there are no strict ABC step 1, 2, 3 kind of thing, but these are just like principles that you can keep in mind that I believe support you with this process. So principle number 1 is understanding that any crying, tantrum, defiance, oppositional behavior, anything like that means that your child is in stress response. They have moved outside their zone of regulation, and now they are in stress response. When we are in stress response, our usual ways of thinking goes out the window. So you might have a child who perfectly knows a rule, what they are supposed to not to do, and they go ahead and do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, because when they are in stress response, they're not physiologically able to access that part of the brain. So if you can just understand this, you will realize that this is not about your child consciously manipulating you. You might have that experience. You might feel that way, and that's probably related to something in your past, in your own childhood. So this is more about you. If you feel like your child is manipulating you and it's really triggering you, this is not about the child, this is about you. And your response, your own wound, your own trauma is actually coming in the way of appropriately responding to your child. And this is also why you get to heal from these things, so that you don't have this perception that my child is manipulating me, pushing my buttons, and giving me a hard time. Because no matter how hard you try to cover it up and try to be kind and compassionate with your child, if you really believe that inside, your child is going to feel that too. So this is why you get to do some deep digging and healing yourself if these are your responses. And a lot of parents feel exactly that way, and it's just an opportunity to heal. You're just human. It's totally normal. But it is important to, no matter, even if you feel manipulated, your buttons are pushed, and you feel controlled and powerless, all those things, even if you feel that way, if you can just remember, okay, my child is in stress response. That is the problem. The problem is not the behavior. The problem is that my child is in stress response. And one more note about manipulation is that kids, like, even when they do, even when it's blatant manipulation, maybe it's blatant lying, even then, this is coming from an unconscious place, and the underlying issue is still stress response. They are not actually consciously scheming against you and making your life really hard. So it's really, really important to remember that, so that you can respond again, the right timing. So, and oftentimes, so what's underneath these stressors? Lots of different things. Many times it's unmet needs. Overly busy schedule, overstimulation, things happening in the world, changes in the family. Lots of different things can cause kids stress, even just like day-to-day interactions and things like that. So that was my principle number 1. Principle number 2 is to allow, accept, and welcome the crying. So really, genuinely allowing the child to cry, to show your child it's okay to cry, and that you are not there to interrupt it. This is the path to healing. And children who are really allowed to freely cry, they will become less aggressive over time. So kids who are aggressive, kids who are having a lot of behavior issues, acting out behavior, who are loud and violent and destructive, they might have tantrums without any tears. This is a child who has not resolved their feelings. It's a child who feels unsafe. So more you allow that child to cry, the more they will be able to resolve those big feelings. And here, of course, there gets to be boundaries. Violence and aggression is not allowed. So you get to keep the child safe and you get to keep yourself safe. However, the emotional expression is what is allowed, not the aggression. Okay? So when your child is crying, it's important to figure out first, are they in pain? Are they hurt? Are they hungry? What's going on? Just kind of doing a quick little safety check and assessment of the immediate needs. And if all that is okay, then okay, there's some reason that the child needs to cry it out. And so you get to be present to them. You can offer physical touch or contact. But again, notice their body language. If your kid pushes you away, says go away, you just back off a little bit. So then don't touch them. Don't try to force anything. Don't try to force a big bear hug if your child doesn't want it. You get to respect them. So be present. You can say things like, it's okay to cry. I'm here for you. It's okay. We all have big feelings. Let the big feelings out. You are safe with me. Let it all out. I'm with you. These kinds of things. So never say, stop crying or anything like that. Okay. So that's principle number 2, just allowing and accepting and even welcoming, embracing the crying child. Okay. Principle number 3 is no timeouts, no rewards, no consequences, and no punishments. This is not a behavior that requires any consequences or punishment. Those will absolutely, absolutely destroy secure attachment with your child. Timeouts leave children in a very heightened stress response. They will eventually stop crying, but their body is still on hyper alert stress response. So parents have the appearance like, oh, timeout works, the child stopped crying, but internally they're still in terror. They are afraid, they are frightened, they have stress hormones running through their body. Children should never ever be left alone to cry. So remember that. So, and finally, before I finish here for today, I'm sure you might have a question. Paula, when do I soothe my child? When do I regulate them? When do I do that everybody else always tells me to do? So this is where the timing comes in. So stress response happens in a continuum. It starts with a calm state. So the child is just calm, everything is fine, they are playing, they are curious, they are open. Okay, so that's a regular, normal, calm state of the nervous system. Now, the next state is alert. Like, think about deer in the like maybe herd of deer is eating and they hear crackling in the bushes. So they might like pick their head and just listen what's going on. And that's it. And that is the next stage of the stress response continuum. So think about how might that look for your child then. Maybe they stop doing something what they are doing, kind of like the deer does, okay? The next stage after that is called flocking. Flocking is like, okay, a little bit more restlessness. Like in our deer example, the deer might like, okay, they lift their head, perk up their ears, they might start like moving and pacing around a little bit. So now if you see your child doing this sort of thing, again, applying this to human behavior, then you know that now they are moving outside the zone of regulation. Okay, so up until this point, things might, feel a little bit of challenging for the child, a little frustrating. However, it is not distressing or frightening yet. Okay, so at this point right now is a great time to do some self-regulation, some soothing. Hey, I notice you're getting a little stressed out. Maybe you are in that yellow light zone if you have taught your child green light, yellow light, red light in terms of their levels of regulation. When they are in that yellow light zone, great time to, okay, would you like to go to your calm, soothing corner? Here is your basket of fidget toys. Let's see if we can find something there to help your body calm down. Do you feel like moving or dancing? Invite the body to do some movement. That is usually the best way to calm down. Have some balloons ready. Do you want to play with balloons? Maybe you just need a hug or something like that. So here at this point, it's a really good point to do some intervention. Now, beyond this, now we are moving. The next stages are freeze, which is basically dissociation. Then we have flight and fight. So when the freeze response is happening, now there has been a disconnection to the conscious mind, and the body mind system has been overwhelmed. Okay, and then flight is running away, of course, and fighting is the aggression, fighting back, all these kinds of things. So these don't necessarily go in this particular order. Sometimes the nervous system chooses the flight, chooses the fight, and maybe the freeze comes at the very end when they are just in such a terror that they just freeze and play dead like an animal would. But when it gets to the freeze, flight, fight zone, then that's where a child is experiencing fear, terror, and distress. Not a time to pull out the fidget box. Like they're just gonna kick it off your hands and be done with that. So that, not a time to talk, even not a time to even talk. So that hopefully gives you some idea of kind of like where is the point of intervention and what to do. So it's really like in the flocking stage where you see them starting to move outside or to the edges of the zone of regulation, and that's a great intervention point. And my final note for today is to really create some emotional safety at home. Like, so when you have an environment of emotional safety, it is likely that your child will do less crying, your child will do less tantruming, your child will do less power struggles as well. So emotional safety is created by respecting your child, listening to your child, being compassionate, learning to understand them, making them feel important, giving them appropriate power, giving them choices, involving them in the family activities, really respecting that. All that kind of falls in my mind under respect. Like, let's not overpower kids just because we are older and our bodies are bigger. Like, we really get to like lift them up. Kids get to be lifted up to their dignity and to the nobility of their soul and their person and being that they are. So that if you do that, you will definitely see a shift in your family. And then, of course, like I mentioned before, when there's some crying, accept the child's crying and tantrums. And really, most importantly, using non-authoritarian discipline. Using non-authoritarian discipline, no rewards, punishments, or consequences, unless it's natural consequences are everywhere. This is not imposed by you. This is imposed by situations and life. And I believe when we just highlight those natural consequences, that's all you need to do. There are no other arbitrary consequences needed in this situation. So I hope that that serves you. I hope that gives you some clarity, some new information, because you can really do your child a service by actually stop regulating them all the time, because that actually prevents the stress hormones from leaving the body and the child from releasing the big emotions and the stress. So, little bit maybe a new way for you. I love this. I resonate with this so much. Give it a go. And, the invitation is for you to be okay when your child cries. And knowing when your child is crying doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. They just get to cry. And there's nothing to fix, nothing to do other than to allow them to cry in your arms, like Dr. Alita Soldier says. So please go check out her books. This information, a lot of this that I shared today is coming from her work, from her aware parenting. And of course, there's some of my my insights in this as well, but I want to make sure that I give her credit. She's amazing. Check her out on YouTube and online. And of course, I am here for you too. So if you haven't checked out the Facebook group yet, come on and connect with us. It's on my Transformational Parent Facebook page, and look for a group. It's called Circle of Support, where I pop in every week some extra bonus materials and resources and tools and activities to really support you in your journey of parenting. Have a fantastic week, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye now.